Hi everyone, it's Evgeny.
And Anastasia.
Welcome you to the Allcorrect Gamedev Show. And with us today, Barry Keating, game writer and screenwriter. Hello Barry, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
To begin with, tell us about the first ever computer game or video game that you ever played.
I think my first real memory of a video game, and kind of being sucked into that world, was I went to my cousin's one day and he got this, he had a Commodore 64. He had this, I think it was like a ninja game, and he kind of showed it to me. It was a side-scrolling, cool, like little ninja platformer, and he was like, have a go. And I think I must have been only maybe 8 or 9 at the time, and I had a bit of a go of it, and I just got immediately hooked on it. And so, like, I turned around to my parents and I was like, I want a computer for Christmas, and I got an Amstrad CPC 464. We had like the green screen. It was, tape loader. 45 minutes to load a game, and then if it didn't load,
nice.
over again. Like, but that was kind of like my first big sort of experience with video games, and the idea of, like, in particular, the idea of like false advertising, because you would get these like boxes, for example, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out, and it came out for the Amstrad, and you had this cool box, and on the back of it, you have these screenshots, and you're like, oh my God, this game looks amazing. And then you put the tape in, and, it takes 45, 50 minutes to load. And then the game you get is not the game that's on the back of the box. And then you look down and screenshots may be from a different version. It's like, yeah, of course it was. That's from the bloody Nintendo version. So, that happened quite a lot. And it was a thing I kind of learned, like, the hard way, being obsessed with games like Midnight Resistance and stuff like that. They looked great on the arcade, and they would put the arcade screenshots on the back of the box, which was so misleading. And then, of course, you'd buy it and load it up, and it would look crap.
Jesus.
All right, yeah, sounds familiar. Sometimes this loading screens get interrupted for some reason, and you have to start all over again.
Yeah, well, that was the loading screen got loaded, and then of course, like, back then in those days, it was kind of like you could go down to your friend's house and you were like, hey, do you like this game? You just get a tape deck and you just copy it. It was very easy just to copy games and take it back home to your house. It was much easier. Like, I'd go to my friend's house. And I think, like, I remember, stuff like, RoboCop. Ocean Software did all those great games. Like, it was at RoboCop, Total Recall. Oh my God! Like, the Hit Squad tapes, which look like Target Renegade, and I have so many fond memories of that. Those games and those kind of genres, and just discovering games that way. That was sort of my gateway into the world of games. And I kind of stepped away for a long time. After that, really, I had like a Sega Master System and then a SNES, and then I think after the SNES, just kind of fell away from games for a while until the PlayStation came out,
Mm-hmm. Oh, you had real life for some time without games at all.
For a change.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
and that was. When the PlayStation came out, I just remember, I didn't buy one, but you used to be able to go to the video store here and just rent one for the weekend, So it's like 10 pound, and you get it for like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a bunch of games. But I remember I was working in a supermarket at the time. And we're all like, 16, 17 working out. And the manager was kind of like, I was walking down the aisle one of the evenings as the place was closing up, and I was looking at the PlayStation, and Resident Evil 2 had just come out. And the manager was like, oh, you going to get one? I was like, no, I too expensive. And he was like, hey, take it home for the weekend. So he just gave me the console and Resident Evil 2.
Wow.
And I just kind of went home, and I remember, plugging it in, and I didn't have to work the next day, and I started playing it maybe like 8 o'clock that night, and I stayed up all night playing Resident Evil 2. It was like 7 a.m. the next morning when I'd finished it, and I was just like, yeah, that's it. A core gaming memory,
Wow.
Well, Resident Evil is good.
Yes.
I mean, no doubt in that. So, how did you come to the industry of game development? I mean, obviously you liked games as a teenager, maybe as a young adult, but what influenced you the most in choosing like the industry, let's say?
Well, I mean, I came about it in a very long-winded way. Like, I'm quite a journeyman. I started originally, like, I started as a journalist over here in Ireland. Where I worked as a journalist working for a local newspaper here in my hometown of Dundalk. And I was just like 18, 19, I think it was about 19. I just finished school, and I understood the newspaper didn't have a film critic. So I just kind of went and I said, hey, I'd be interested in reviewing movies. Would you give me the shot? And they were like, well, write us a sample review. So I did. And then he read the review and was like, okay, cool, we'll give you a shot. So I kind of that's where I kind of got my foot in the door, reviewing kind of movies here. And then I went to university to study screenwriting, then in Bournemouth in the south of England. And while I was there, I was working in like a video game store, just, like trading it, it was kind of DVDs, movies, trading.
PlayStations.
Yeah. And, and this guy, would come in and he would just trade piles of games in all the time. We just got talking and talking and talking. And then one day he was like, you seem to, like video games and, stuff like that. I'm an editor for a PlayStation magazine, and we have a job going. And would you like to apply for it? And I did. It was just a staff writer on a magazine called P2 for a company called Highbury Entertainment. And I got the job. And so I kind of stepped away from university. And that's kind of like where I got my foot in the door, just as a junior position, writing game reviews for PlayStation 2. And from there, I went into, I moved to like a film magazine called DVD Review, took a number of positions on there, from features editor, news editor. And then I kind of wound up back in video games as a deputy editor on another, PlayStation magazine, PlayStation World. And from there, I found I kind of jumped across to online, working for Sony PlayStation on their official sort of European PlayStation portal on their site. And once I got my foot in the door at Sony PlayStation into the sort of creative services team, which is like copywriting and building websites and writing all the product descriptions and all that sort of stuff on the website, I then kind of found out who I needed to talk to into game development, started to kind of muscle my way into a studio, and that studio was Studio Liverpool. I got talking to a gentleman by the name of Graham Anchors, and he took a chance on me and he gave me my first opportunity. They were interested in doing some stuff for Wipeout, and so he gave me a shot. And and he kind of liked what I did, and they took me on as the first in-house narrative designer in Studio Liverpool. So for that, I'm forever thankful for it, because that was my the first sort of real opportunity to get my foot in the door of the games industry. Unfortunately, I was living in London and just relocated from London to Liverpool, and that dream lasted only 8 months because Studio Liverpool was closed down. It was very unfortunate because we were working on some fun stuff, but they decided to close the studio, and it kind of everybody just kind of disbanded. So that was the end of that dream, and then I guess that's how I got in, and there was a little bit of a lull, I suppose, where I was kind of. I don't know, like I fell back into games journalism, and I was in that position where you'd only work the one job for 8 months, and I was applying for game writing jobs and just not getting anywhere, I really wasn't getting anywhere because it was like, you don't have the experience. I didn't get long enough. There's nothing to show for it, even though it was Sony PlayStation. So that was a bit of an uphill battle. But I fell back into journalism, and again, for that, I'm always super thankful, because a lot of people I worked with in the world of journalism kind of helped me out when I got, that whole thing kind of collapsed on me. So that was great and really appreciated. And then I got a job working I just started doing loads of tests. I moved back to Ireland and started just doing tons and tons of, narrative design, game writer tests. And eventually I got a job at Gameloft in Madrid. So I relocated to Madrid, and I worked on a number of different projects there for 6 months before I came back to Ireland and decided to then focus on writing feature films, because just before, so that's kind of how I did it. So just before I had moved to Madrid, I finished my first movie script, and I didn't think anything was going to happen to that. I kind of handed it over to my friend, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to shoot it." And I was like, "No, you're not. I don't believe what you're saying." And then a few months into the job in Madrid, he sent me this trailer, and he's like, "Yeah, we made it, and it's Franco Nero was in it. It's coming out, and my contract was coming up at the end anyway of Gameloft Madrid." So I finished up the 6 months, and I just I came back home and I started to write feature films for a while. And I wrote a bunch of movies over the course of nearly a year, one of which led to Steep, which, it was a Ubisoft. I had written this horror movie in the world of extreme sports called Downhill. And they were just kind of, I think they kind of liked the extreme sports angle that I had, that I had worked in that sort of realm. And I did an interview. It was through the people at Side, the sort of the agency, voiceover agency in the UK. I think there's offices everywhere. Actually, it was a lady called Sini Downing, and she was, I think I harassed her constantly for a long time to kind of get on their books, and she was great. And she kind of like, she offered me this opportunity and put me in touch with the guys at Ubisoft entity, and that happened. That job opened. That really kind of once I got that job and I worked with those guys, that just opened the floodgates, after working with Ubisoft. And I, it's funny, I'm still really, really, really good mates with the chap who directed, Steve. And we constantly just, we kind of, text each other, checking in on each other. It's nice. It was a really great working relationship that turned into a lovely friendship. So that's nice.
That's sweet. First of all, I have 2 notes here, if I may. Yeah. So first of all, Steep is a project we worked on localization-wise with Ubisoft. It's actually on our website. This is very cool. And then also, you said you worked as a film critic for a newspaper. I've always been wondering, as I was a kid, those jobs like restaurant critic or film critic were very lovely to me somehow. Because, you get to watch something and then you get to shit all over it.
Yeah.
Is it like that? What's the criteria of being like a film critic? What is it?
The thing is, I when I first started out, I mean, I was like, I think I was like 18 or 19 years of age. So this was just insane for me. I had just finished school. I had done a year in college, and I dropped out of college because I didn't like it. And then I started applying for other courses, which was going to have a big gap in it, between then and moving to another course. But I was just kind of going to the movies 2-3 times a week in my hometown, just watching these movies and then writing reviews. And I loved it. I mean, it was a local newspaper. So I don't think I ever approached it from sort of like, I'm going to watch a movie and then shit all over it. I mean, I love the act of going to see the movie and the cinema. Even, and of course, some stuff was going to be crap, but I think it's really easy to, just write a very scathing review and just shit on someone's work, versus if something's bad, to try find some of the goodness in it and try to, a balanced review. That's kind of how I like to approach it, because it's super easy to just write, this is a terrible, blah, 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 and annihilate somebody's life work, which I just think is kind of cool,
Yeah. It's just me being a bit toxic this evening. So I woke up and I chose violence.
For some reason.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There were certainly days I remember a DVD review where we would all watch stuff and it would just be there would be a big debate. We'd all be going what, you give that 3 stars? No way. That was no. And then they'd be like, no, I'm taking it home tonight to watch it because we need to do a round table as to decide whether or not that's as good as you say it is.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the screenwriting. You said that you wrote your first scripts, but how did you come up with the idea of doing that?
Well, actually, that one, the first one that I got made was through a friend of mine, Milan Totorovic. He's based out of Belgrade. He directs a lot of stuff for the CW, the Outpost, and he's doing the Arc TV show. So he's done really well for himself. But he and I had worked on a bunch of comic books basically that were tied to movies like Demons, Battle Royale, and George Romero's Day of the Dead. And so I'd written these comics. They got nominated for an award over in Italy, and then that's where I met Milan. And we just kind of were sitting having a beer one night, and he had already written a zombie movie called Zone of the Dead. And we just kind of started talking about ideas for a sequel. And he said, hey, you want to write the sequel? And I was like, yeah, of course I want to write the sequel. And the first film he had made was with Ken Faree, who was, in Dawn of the Dead. And of course, holy shit, I'm going to get to work with Ken Faree from Dawn of the Dead. So we developed the script. And as always, I'm sure many people have this story, is that, it never happened. And then we tried other things and it never happened. And I worked with a bunch of other people on many different projects that never, ever kind of came to fruition. But then basically, I just got this call from Milan a few weeks before I was leaving for Madrid, and he was kind of like, "Hey, I've got the script, and we're going to shoot it. We've got money, and we need it needs work, and it needs a polish." And so he showed it to me, and then we jumped on a call and we went through it, and then he was like, "Can you do it?" And I was, "Yeah," and so I did it, and then I just kind of handed over, and I really didn't think anything of it. And of course, that's what I was saying. It got made, and so I just kind of thought to myself, "Well, hey, maybe I'll pursue this as well." Like I always wanted to do the two. I mean, I kind of like I really love the idea of screenwriting. I mean, I have stuff here. I was going through my parents' like attic there recently, finding notepads from when I was like 11 and 12 and 13, with like writing scripts, like when I'd seen Reservoir Dogs, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to write my own version of that. And you do the school version of Reservoir Dogs, and it's like, oh my God, who wrote this crap? Like, but you just have all these notes and all these crazy things that I kind of find. So I knew I always wanted to be a writer from a very early age. I don't think I ever had any other aspirations other than to write. So, to be able to sort of move between the two has been a bit of a dream, So it's been nice.
All right. Is it different? Is there a difference between writing a movie script and writing a game script?
Yeah, very, very much so. Like writing a movie script is a very isolated kind of process. I would kind of, in some instances, the idea I would brainstorm with a producer or a director and then go away and write it. And I could be gone for like a month or two to write the first draft. And then I take it to them, and then there's notes, and then we kind of do the revisions and all that. But it's very much like, maybe we break story together over a call and like, to develop all the character arcs and stuff like that. But it is very much me sat here in my office, just kind of, writing the script. But with writing games, it's completely collaborative. It has to be. It doesn't work unless you collaborate, especially in video games. That's
like with a game designer. You mean like with
level designers, game designers, coding, art, game director. You gotta work with everybody. You can't be on an island onto yourself. At least I mean that's my experience, and I don't think it works if you. Like you think you just can't do it all on your own, because things are going to change.
Yeah, makes sense. And the game is changing like constantly.
The game is always changing constantly, and like it is a case of you might sit here and write like some of the greatest dialogue, great scenes, great cinematics, and think, yeah, that's amazing, and then the next day it's like, yeah, that thing you wrote, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, they're great, but
and that happens like. Yeah, constantly. I'm sure everybody can relate to that one, I'm sure.
Well, does this teamwork that you mentioned actually allows you to, organically make a bond between the story and the game mechanics? The teamwork of level designers and game producers.
Absolutely. Yeah. I find, in particular in my current job right now, I'm working with IOI on the project 007.
Yeah.
It's really, really collaborative, and I love working with the LDs. We, on different missions and stuff like that. And I think it's like, I find, when we get together to brainstorm certain things that it's going to happen in the game, it's very much like, they'll pitch to me, and then I'll pitch my ideas, and then we'll come up with it. We'll gel the two together, and then we'll kind of put stuff in. We'll test it. We'll see if it works. We'll talk about it. It's really, really collaborative, and that's kind of, and because of that, you get great results.
Okay. Getting back to the collaboration with the team, how do you make it that the plot of the script that you create aligns with the game mechanics? Are there any secrets about that?
No, man. Because the thing is, I find gameplay always comes first. That's gameplay comes first. There's a. I guess I have to be careful what I say because I'm under NDA, like the project. But when I came aboard, there was a story in place when I came aboard, but there's has been real opportunities for creativity and stuff like that. And that's been amazing. But yeah, it is, there's a roadmap I guess like there's a piece of string that kind of tells the story for this part of the game, and that's what's happening. But if sometimes it changes to because the gameplay needs to change, and it's kind of very flexible in that sense. And I found that we've been able to kind of I haven't been, I guess, like impacted too much in that, but we've been able to kind of make it work.
I have a question here, kind of a subsequent one, but maybe not. I don't know. So basically, we have people who come to us with an idea, right? And their idea is great, but they don't know what the game is going to be about. Not about, but like, how do I explain this? They don't know the game mechanics that they're going to imply into the game. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, the game mechanics or the plot. What is there first?
It really depends. Like I think I've worked in projects where absolutely all the mechanics have been in place, right? And I think with Steep, for example, when I joined that project, it was I think it was like during the summer, and it was shipping at Christmas because they had all of the mechanics in place, everything. They really it was in really, really great shape. What they just needed then was the dialogue and the narration and all sorts of stuff to come in and kind of gel everything together. But yeah, there's that, and then there's been times where I've been fortunate enough to work on projects where it's just a germ of an idea, and then you get into like a writer's room and you get to play a part in building the world and stuff. When I worked at Wargaming, that was really cool because I was able to build a small little writer's room. We were able to take the idea and like flesh it out with the game director and the executive producer, and then I was able to, for the first year it was just me and the game director, banging stuff around, and then he kind of, they were like, oh, we can hire another writer, so I did, and then we got another guy from the company, and it was just building that writer's room and having so much fun bouncing ideas around, creating characters, creating backstories for these characters and how they all interconnected, and what we were, there was things like we were able to create comic books based off this, and then so it was really, really cool. So yeah, I worked in situations where it is mechanics have been in place, or it's a ground zero job, or I've also worked in projects where there's just a lot of stuff is still in flux, where there's a mechanic we think is in there, and then it's like, no, it's not working, we're going to throw it out, so you got to rewrite around that, and so that does happen, I guess, like many different situations.
Well, getting back to the characters, there were some games, and there are some games that I only play and played for the plot, for like, because the characters are interesting. Like Warcraft 3, for example, the story of Prince and then King. Well, hope it's not a spoiler for anyone. Arthur's and his journey, and he's like turning to the dark side, so to say. But yeah, and I was not very interested in the game mechanics themselves, but like the story that kept my interest throughout the game. How do you create the characters that are both memorable and like interesting for the players to watch?
Yeah, I mean, that's the 64,000 question, isn't it? Like, I mean, I'm lucky enough kind of like to work on projects where there's always been other great people sort of to bounce ideas off, like, and to talk about like, who is this character, what makes them tick, trying to kind of, on the surface of, okay, here's the hero character, like what's their, diving into their background, into their flaws, their fears, all sorts of stuff, trying to pull out these things and then find ways in the story to play to those things, to kind of, so these people aren't just kind of, killing machines or unstoppable, things like that. With Steep, I guess, for example, it's you're the character, so there's not a whole lot. The fantasy is you're this awesome kind of like, snowboarder and a whole lot there. But with Bond, it's very different. There's so much there I'd play, and so much rich lore and history to dig into. Sifu was a really great fun to work on, and I think like looking at that character and that particular journey was very interesting. But yeah, it helps to have a great team, and I think bouncing ideas around and trying to decide like like I said, what makes this character tick, what's their strengths, what's their flaws, and then obviously like creating a good villain to sort of mirror them and bounce off them, and then like support characters. So because like You look at, I guess, I'm trying to think, you look at the GTA games and they've got great support players. You look at the Red Dead Redemption 2, what a great band of characters that are there. You look at like The Last of Us and it's Ellie and Joel's story. And then there's other, it's great. Like, I think it's like, and then of course, like you got stuff like, for me, I love like, the Batman, the Arkham series. And of course, like you're building up an IP there, but I think it's like just digging into the character and with the team and sort of seeing what we can do and how far we can push things. It kind of brings out the best aspects of the character.
Okay, how do you like bringing the best in every character and developing the plot, stories, background, whatever it is? How do you balance between, for instance, linear gameplay, and then you have to go with like a very complex plot on top of that, but it's a linear gameplay, so it's you don't have any branches to go anywhere. How do you do that?
Well, yeah, it's about, I guess, with those instances, it's trying to kind of like get those great character beats in, those great character moments. Because if it's a linear experience and we know it's like this, let's say it's just this big action game where you go from A to B on this journey, you get defeat X, Y, and Z along the way. We know those big story beats are going to happen, but it's about finding those little character beats and those great moments, those sort of little nuances where you can kind of, corner the character and have and sort of, I guess, like show people who they really are besides being, I don't know, like a killing machine or whatever, like an unstoppable martial artist. But you have to have these little reflective moments to kind of, allow you to kind of just shine a light on who the person really is.
Let's talk about different genres. Well, for example, there is RPG, there's shooter, there's puzzle game. How do you adapt the plots like to many of these genres? Oh, is there a difference even?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I just kind of, I've worked in many different genres, like sports game. And then I worked on, I remember for Ubisoft Paris, one of the romantic virtual novels, like City of Love Paris, which was basically like, Sex in the City in Paris. And you just kind of play this character, you get to the different relationships. And that was really interesting and fun and kind of experience to try. That was right after Steep. And, I'd never written it like that before. It was very much a shed of water experience for me. So that was kind of cool. And then I kind of worked on like Paranoia, Happiness is Mandatory, which is an adaptation of a tabletop RPG. And that's kind of wacky, weird sci-fi. So I don't think I don't think it's about, I guess you have to adapt to whatever the genre is you're doing. And, whether it's a sports game or, the tabletop RPG, point-click adventure. I've not really had to kind of go like change the story, so to speak, but just I adapt my style to the particular project is certainly what I've had to do on numerous occasions.
No, see, so it's like not the genre itself; it's the project.
It's the project, yeah, it is. It's like, when I joined Paranoia, Happiness is Mandatory, it was like it was a world I didn't know a whole lot about, and then I was like, well, I needed to go and learn all about that and read the lore books and all the game books, and then see what the mechanics were of the game. And like, okay, now I understand what we're doing and what the studio is doing, and try to figure out how does my writing gel to this world and make it all work.
Okay. Well, I have a side, actually a question about this project that you mentioned about Happiness is Mandatory. Does it have any connection to the Brave New World by Aldous Huxley or not?
To what's that, Brave New World? No. It was is it tabletop RPG from, God, I can't remember. It was the 70s or the 80s, but yeah, it came out on PC. And then it was kind of pulled from release. I don't even know if it's actually out anymore. Honest, it had a very choppy production, to be honest. I think that's about all I'm legally allowed to say.
Right. Okay. Oh my God, I have a question about this. So the production line, right? There is a specific way to communicate with people depending on what you're doing. And you, as a narrative designer, you have to communicate with basically everybody, as you mentioned, level designer, producers, like C-level management, whatever it is. everything kind of goes into your circle of communication, let's say, on the project. So do you have any examples of how people communicate depending on their, I don't know, cultural differences? You said you worked in Madrid. Madrid is so different from any other company. I do believe that, like, from Northern Europe. So what are the like specifications of those different teams, let's say?
Yeah, because we have in Serbia we have this Polako,
Yeah,
which is
lifestyle.
like
I don't know what
lifestyle, and it's like similar to Spanish mañana.
Yeah. Well, Polako is the way you live. You everything is Polako. You don't hurry anywhere. Everything is fine. Just Polako.
Yeah, yeah. I think I don't think I've ever kind of ran into any problems or had any weird clashes or culture clashes or anything like that. I've always kind of just tried to adapt myself. When I moved to Madrid, I looked at how they did things and how they ran things, and I was like, well, this is where I am now, so this, this is how we do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've worked with many different people from different cultures and backgrounds and all that sort of stuff, and I've never really had any issues. Like, of course, there's times where your humor might not land with someone, like, but that's kind of like to be expected. But
yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever kind of had any culture clashes or anything like that. People are being respectful of me and vice versa. So
yeah, obviously. I mean, with all the respect, it's just that, sometimes you find some specifications that are very interesting. I mean, they're not offensive. They're nothing even
people do not want to offend you. It's just the way
they're just something that you cannot avoid in the working process.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about cultural differences, another question: did you have any cases that you had to adapt somehow your plots or your scripts to account for the cultural differences in within a certain audience?
No, but I think the only time I've encountered stuff like that is when it's getting localized, and then I remember again. I'll just and most of the projects that I've done when it gets localized, it always comes back where you get the question like, what does this mean? What's this joke mean? Or what's this line mean? Or this doesn't translate to this language very well. Mm-hmm. So what have you got an alternative thing? That's the only time I've ever really encountered stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, where dialogue hasn't quite it just doesn't land in another language. So you have to kind of modify. That's probably the only time really.
Well, this is basically culturalization. Yeah. It's not even localization.
Yeah.
If you have to adapt something
exactly.
to a different culture. But that's cool. So you talk to localization agencies or like freelancers too as part of the team, like writers.
When I guess like with I guess for example with Steve, they had a localization team, and I would deal directly with those guys, answering all the questions and stuff like that. And I remember Paranoia Happiness is Mandatory. Yeah, they had a localization head, and there was a lot of questions come from there, and just making sure everything was cool and made sense and the lore stuff. But yeah, I didn't deal with any agencies, so not yet.
Okay, so it's like the internal localization team, and then the localization team deals with everybody else.
That's it, because it's like you deal with somebody in internal, and then of course I've no doubt in my mind that they were talking to that question that come from an external localization team.
Most probably. But okay, yeah, that's cool. All right. Yeah, we are localization, and we use a lot of tools,
Yeah.
We have computer-assisted translation tools for art production. We have whatever it is, Jira, Asana, whatever. What kind of tools do you use in your day-to-day work to like organize stuff and to keep your text there and like divided by projects, or how is it?
Well, I mean, like right now we use Confluence and Jira, and track everything that way. We have our own in-house sort of writing tool, which is a bit like Final Draft, and it's great. So everything you write in there, and it's in-house writing tools and Jira, Confluence, and Teams. And our meetings are there, chatting with people. So yeah, it's all very kind of easy enough to keep track of stuff.
Yeah, structured.
Mm-hmm. Very, very. And then of course, like trusty notepads.
Oh yeah, of course.
But yeah, everything. I kind of have everything here in front of me I need on this computer for IOI, which like I said, Confluence, track everything on Jira. We've got pages with confidence dedicated to the narrative, all the different things. If I need to find answers very quickly, I'll always go there. Most of the time, I've been on the project 2.5 years nearly now, so kind of know where most stuff is. And then just lists. Sometimes I like to just make a good old fashioned list and tick it off.
Oh yeah, this is the best feeling to tick something off the list. I've got this Microsoft To Do. You tick it, and it makes this perfect sound of like, and you're like, yes, okay, accomplished. Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, channeling creativity into something that's structured is something what we also do with artists, and like, you have to kind of lead them into something that would be understandable for your clients. With you, I believe it is something similar, because writing texts out of nowhere, this is something that I completely do not understand. It's like writing music to me. It's not getting comprehended in my head how people can come up with new stuff. This is weird. But like, all this creativity that you have to structure it somehow. Is it easy for you to do, or do you feel obliged to do that and that's not convenient for you?
No, I think it's, I look at I guess like I look at my calendar for the day. So like today, today's Monday. I have a number of different missions that I am kind of covering on Project 007. So I look at the missions and I make a list of like what needs to be done. I know what I have to write X, Y, and Z on these missions. And so I'll just literally look at my calendar. I'll do them. I have, have my meetings, and then I'll say, well, I'm going to block out an hour for that mission, an hour and a half for that mission, an hour and a half. And I'll just, I'll write. And I there are times when I will have brain farts and just not be able to, you think that, oh my, I think I'm going to be able to, whiz through it. And then there's days where I could stare at the screen and go like, oh my God, I can't think of what this person would say in this situation, or this doesn't make sense to me, or why are we doing this? Why I have to think through the logic of it. And then I would call an LD and go, can you just like talk me through, beat by beat, what is happening here, so that I can try to, and I'm sure they probably think I've gone mad, because I'm closing my eyes going, yeah, I'm sitting here, I can see that. Okay, and they're like, no, okay, I got it. Okay, bye. And I'll just hang up and I'll start writing.
Oh my God. Do you have like a schema in your mind, like a matrix of stuff that's happening?
I have a lot of I have the IOI computer here, and then I have this one here where you are, and then I've got a TV on in the background. So
my God. Yeah. I've installed a TV in your TV so you can enjoy your TV show. I mean, this is from this old TV show on MTV, right? Pump My Ride. That's it. Oh my God. All right. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a bit about alternative realities, like about multiverse, so to say. Well, in movies there are sometimes alternative endings. When, for example, there is a classic ending, and then you suddenly find out that there is also an alternative ending, like the characters are alive suddenly, or like whatever happens there. And that kind of creates another universe, so to say. But like in games, it's even more different than that, because if the game is non-linear, then there is basically an infinite number of possible outcomes, and like plot wise, how do you calculate that? How do you plan that?
Well, I mean,
how do you help with that?
I've never really had the experience of doing one of those massive ones. And there was one project I worked on. I mean, I know it's I don't want to maybe seafood. There's there's the two endings of seafood, and you get you have the main one and then you have the second one. But I guess a spaghetti one would be a good example. I remember I worked on this VR project with this company called Studio Future Madrid, and they were really, really cool. And it was only a short VR experience. I think it was about maybe like 6 or 7 minutes, but in order to there was multiple outcomes of like what you basically you woke up in this basement and you had this crazy person talking to you, and you could attack them or try to escape out the door. Very, very many different endings. And I remember how we just developed that was essentially just getting a mind map software.
Okay.
And just kind of going, we start here and this could happen, but then you could do this, which could lead to this. And it just became wild, crazy. But eventually we got it all together. We had all the eventualities. And then it was just a case of like, right, let's write this narrative line, right? So then let's go narrative through line A, B, C, D. And that was it. You had to do it, and just kind of checking then the logic to go, right, so and we got that sorted. So if this happens, definitely we've got that covered. We've got that eventuality covered. Yeah, it got a bit crazy, I have to say. And
you know, uh-huh.
Yeah, no, it was a bit wild, and I think it was kind of.
Yeah.
I remember by the end of it, I was going like, "My God, that was that was only a short thing I was doing." I'm not sure. I don't know how these people, do it on these massive RPGs, because that is how do you track all of that stuff? I mean, obviously you have to track it because your scripts must be thousands upon thousands of pages long. So that in itself is a gift and an art form, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, you know this game, Detroit Become Human.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's like the game is divided into chapters, and after each chapter, there's this tree of decisions that you made, and the game basically shows you what were the other options that you probably didn't even know about that they existed, and this game is actually it kind of forces you to once you are done with it, once like you beat the game, to start all over again, like to try the other solution, right? to make the other decisions.
Yeah, but I think that's I mean, again, I think it's amazing that that these people can go create that and then just can think of all of these eventualities. Like it's like they've left no stone unturned, and I think that, like I said, that in itself is a gift. Like to be able to, I know my story, but I'm going to approach this story from every player who's on the planet, how they would tackle it. I was like, they will just like, okay, so if I go open this door, what if I don't want to open the door? What if I want to go through the window or something like that? And you have an answer for everything. It's really, really quite something.
No, but I don't get it. Like, first of all, it's like step one is usually same for everybody. This is the beginning. Starting from step two, it's like the progression of how far the tree can go, how many branches it has, and then it's absolutely, to me, it seems impossible to track it down. But I mean imagine writing all of them.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, and I have to say that I much prefer a linear experience. I don't mind some choices.
Yeah.
Even as a player, I mean, I talk to people about this all the time. I look at, whenever I get my hands on new games, I kind of go, how long is this going to take me to beat? And if it's like, 10 to 15 hours, I'm like, great.
Yeah.
If it's like 50 to 100 hours, I'm like, no, I have 2 kids, don't have any time.
I'm with you on this one, because I personally prefer linear experience, because like so many decisions, they basically make me very anxious.
Oh my God.
Like they like switch on my FOMO like full scale.
No, exactly. That's it. I mean, maybe when I was, in my 20s, and I had or even like a teenager, I had all this time in my head. Now I'm like, I really love playing games, and I just want a great linear experience that I can get through in like 15 hours, maybe 20 if I'm feeling generous.
Yes.
No, but even 15 to 20 hours, imagine you can spend 3 weeks every day easily playing for a bit. That's a long time.
But that's it. But
And
those
then
games,
100 hours. What the?
yeah.
Oh my God,
But
no
even
way.
those 15 to 20 hour games could even take me a couple of months, because I'm life gets in the way,
Yeah. All right. You mentioned you have 2 kids. Do you allow them to play games, or are they too small for that
Well,
yet?
not my daughter. She's 5, so we kind of keep that away from her. But my son is, he's 9, and he absolutely plays games. And I mean, I've gotten in a lot of trouble introducing the games into the house a little bit too early, probably. He does play games quite a lot. We just finished It Takes Two, so we're kind of getting ready for Split Fiction, which is coming out. I think very soon. Most of the time, but he plays a lot of Minecraft and RPG stuff and things. He loves. I think one of his favorite games was Grounded on Game Pass. He was a huge fan of that. He loves these kind of like RPGs and looting ones and building mechanics and all sorts of stuff. Something he can get lost in for ages. So I kind of keep an eye on what he's playing, and he's got. I got him. He's an Xbox in his bedroom. Like you probably should.
Oh my God, imagine an Xbox in your bedroom. That was a dream in our times, I would say. And now it's just a casual thing. You probably have one in your bedroom, and your dad has a new one in the living room and whatever. Okay. Yeah, regarding the age, why I asked about your kids, because this is basically the question that I wanted to ask. Like, do you take into consideration the target audiences of the game when you write your scripts, and how do you do that? For like, age rating for games is so different.
Mm.
And it like sometimes it actually depends on the amount of violence and stuff that happens in the game, which is basically the plot.
Mhm.
So how do you do that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I always know like what exactly who's our audience, and what rating we're going for. I think pretty much every time started on the project, it's always been like, oh, by the way, we're a 16 or 12 or an 18, so you can say X, Y, and Z. With Sifu, it's a hardcore. It's a revenge story. It's it's a guy on a warpath, killing people and kicking the crap out of everyone, and it's super like violent, and it's a martial arts movie. So I knew the audience for that. We have a very strong idea of who the audience is for Bond. Same with Steep and Riders Republic. I know we have a good hook on the audience there, and what we can and can't say, and yeah, I've always had I always get a good briefing before diving into a project, and yes, I'm always very conscious of that when writing stuff. Absolutely.
Okay.
Great. Also about age, there's a rating for the ages, like for teenagers, for people like below a certain age. But are there any differences and something that you have to take into account when we're speaking about like older age? Like, are there any specific features that you need to integrate for people over 30, 40, 50,
I've never
60?
I once worked on a project. I remember after I finished in Game Loft Madrid, the guy who was the studio manager, he left, and he went off and moved into into medical gaming. Are you kind of familiar with that? So
Not really.
they developed this game app, which is specifically designed for elderly people whose eyesight was beginning to fail. It was to kind of, I guess, like try and improve it, train and help them along. And so, yeah, I was specifically writing for this elderly audience in this kind of like fantastical world, which was kind of like a children's book story brought to light. But it was really quite an interesting challenge, definitely, because it was never going to be a game played by the public. It was a medical app in France. So definitely an interesting task.
Yeah, that's so unusual.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. But so nice. I mean, people actually do that, huh?
Yeah, I think it's called Odyssey, and it's still around. And it's really kind of it was quite cool. It was fun. I had no clue how to begin when we started, and he was like, "We're doing this thing, and it's kind of like medical." And I was like, "I've never heard of this. How does this work?" And so it was a really interesting kind of challenge to kind of to do it, and plus it was kind of nice as well to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, when you don't know where to start from, or in the middle of the project you feel like this stuttering, you don't know what to do next, how do you like deal with that kind of a situation, lack of inspiration, let's call it?
Man, I kind of look back at all the stuff we've done, and we might just kind of step away, play another game, try and draw inspiration from somewhere else, listen to something, watch something. I mean, I kind of draw inspiration from everywhere, like comic books, podcasts, movies, TV shows, life in general. Like, thankfully, I don't think I've ever had a period where I couldn't write, where I was like, I've got writer's block. I've had periods where like you think everything you write is crap, like so. And that sort of imposter syndrome, certainly a few times. But yeah, I don't think I've ever really suffered from writer's block, because look, I work as a freelancer. I'm always, it's job to job, contract to contract, so you can't afford to have writer's block to be.
Oh my God.
Okay.
It's kind of like
so the solution is to basically overwhelm yourself with tasks.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the deadline is then, and I need to get paid, so I better start writing.
Whether I have the block or not, you have to deliver. I see.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Harsh motivation, but there you go.
Very
works.
Yeah. It's like it is. It's like the mortgage has to be paid, so you better write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, what advice can you give to the aspiring writers that want to join the gaming industry or movie industry or comic book industry?
Well, I think if you want to be a writer, then you should start writing, but you should also be reading, watching, absorbing story in all forms.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
What's your favorite book, by the way?
American Psycho was one I really,
Oh.
Okay.
near American Psycho, Neuromancer, and then I was a big fan of Stephen King's Graveyard Shift. I liked all the short stories.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of do.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm kind of like a big horror nerd, so that's
Do you like The Dark Tower? Is it the name of
The
it?
Tower,
Of
yeah,
Stephen King's, yeah.
yeah.
Oh my god, I loved it as a teenager. Jesus Christ.
I think that was the thing. The Stephen King books and all those books as a teenager. Clive Barker stuff like Cabal and Hellraiser and Weave World and stuff like that. When you're a 13, 14-year-old teenager reading these horror books, and it's like you flick through, and it's like, oh my god, page 41, that dude's head exploded, and you're like, oh my, and you talk about and you would read all those horror books, and I remember just being terrified reading these books because you'd watch the movies, which is cool, but sometimes the books would just really get inside your head, like so.
Oh yeah,
Mhm,
for
mhm.
sure. Books are so much better with that.
Mm.
And, I mean, playing with your imagination and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy it immensely. I'm currently hooked on the Reacher books at the moment. Just because I like the show because it's just kind of this, like man-made action star just plowing his way through people from case to case. I'm like, yeah, it's perfect. It's such a pulpy, easy read.
Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
okay. Is there a game that you would love to contribute to? Like any game?
Yeah, I've always loved the Resident Evil series. One of my favorite games of all time. I remember this as a journalist getting to see it for the first time is Dead Space. A huge
Dead Space.
Dead
Okay.
Space, yeah, huge fan of that, and it was just fantastic. I really really love the world, love
It's
the
a great game.
yeah, and then I love the remake as well. I think
Yeah.
they did a
Yes.
great job.
Yes.
And so there's that one, Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 2, definitely games of which I would have loved to have worked on. What else? I've always wanted to, a dream project, would love to do a Call of Duty game. Just that whole, like, shoot people, just write a project like, explosion on page 1, explosion on page 2, end of page 3. It's so bombastic, out there. I'd love to get my hands on something like that.
Cool.
And then, you've got stuff like the obvious with the ones that people tell you, like Red Dead Redemption. I loved the first Red Dead Redemption. I thought it was just one of the greatest kind of all video game endings I've ever experienced. So yeah, those things like that, I would love to get my hands on.
Nice.
Right.
I felt like I was listening to a boy talk, because women who I talk to who are in the game industry, they're not most of them, obviously, but some of them were like, yeah, I would like to write a visual novel. And then there you go. I want to make an explosion on page
On
1,
this page,
on page
yeah.
2, page
Yeah.
3.
Well,
Oh
I
my
mean, like
God.
it is. I am just a big child at heart. Like, I mean, I get to play, make video games for a living, and I'm just gonna I'm embracing that. It's like, I love it, and when I work on the horror movies and stuff like that, I get to go wild. It's like I get to, write these, create monsters and kill people off, and have a blast doing it, and I,
Yeah, it's cool.
it's fun. So I want to write movies where I get to blow shit up, or
Oh my God.
All
Okay.
right.
Maybe there is a game that has impressed you very much, like a recent one, let's say from 2024 or something.
Well, I'll tell you, actually, I was looking at, I was having to think about that. I'm late sometimes to stuff, and one I was very late to was Ghost of Tsushima, and
Mhm.
I was late to that. I got it. I bought it. I remember buying it like on day one. I had this really bad habit of buying stuff on day one because I'm like, I want to support the studio, and then I buy it, and then it sits on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh
Sorry.
crap! So I got around to it, and I finished it, and I absolutely loved it. I just thought it was beautiful looking. It was a brilliant story, brilliant characters, just the atmosphere, everything about it. Yeah, definitely one of the most. Yeah, just a really really great experience. And kind of recently, I am in the last week. I bought myself a Quest 3 and the
Okay.
Arkham Shadow on it with the Batman, and it is actually. I'm like, wow, they have nailed the Arkham verse Rocksteady in VR, and it's so cool. The fighting is amazing. It's a workout in itself, like, because you're kind of like, you have to hit, you have to uppercut, and you really, really go on. And I say, like, my wife was looking at me on the sofa going like, wow, he looks like a real dickhead. But it's fantastic. I mean, it is like, I'm in the Arkhamverse and I'm Batman, and I literally am Batman. And you point up here and you push this button and you kind of fly up on your hook, and then when you have to fly, to glide, you hold the triggers, you put your hands like this, like you look like an absolute. It's so good, and I'm really, really, really enjoying it, and I kind of was like, that is a world class experience and immersion. I'm loving it.
Yeah. Cool. Everybody's dream, I guess, to become Batman.
Yeah, if you just
for 15 hours.
And it's funny, like the same company did Iron Man, and I had Iron Man, and I'm like standing there, trying to fly.
Oh, that's cool. I bet it looks very funny from the side. Like you're seeing your world, and your wife is there, like, oh my god, this nerd.
No, because you do look ridiculous. Like there's one game that I got called Phantom Ops, by a company called End Dreams. They're kind of really cool VR guys, and the whole game it's basically Metal Gear Solid in a canoe, and like you're kind of canoeing in this thing, and it's just like, I'm sitting on the sofa, kind of going like this, and then like picking out a gun and go shoot people, and then you kind of duck it down like this, but you look so silly playing it, but you don't care. It's great.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
The magic of it.
All right. Well, that's probably the last question from us. What do you think the game industry will look like in 5 or 10 years from now?
Well, man, it's hard to know. What's the world going to look like in 5 or 10 years?
Oh, yeah.
Man, so, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I already kind of touched upon it there with the fact that, so many layoffs, and it seems to me that the games industry is changing. And I will be very interested to see where we are in a couple of years' time, let alone 5 or 10 years, to be quite honest with you. I hope. I think it's going to be different. I wonder if like big, massive AAA games are going to be sustainable. Will we see? Will it, be smaller stuff? I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't have an answer for that one. Because I really don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm worried about the industry, and I see all this, see people I know and losing jobs, and it is a little bit concerning. So I don't have an answer for you in terms of like where I see the industry. I hope it's here and healthy, and all my friends are back working in games, because I sure as hell don't know what else I'm going to do.
Yeah, well, you do have some options. You can go to the film industry.
Yeah. But even that's taking a hammer in as well. So it's like where you're kind of like, I want to continue to write for a living. I don't know how to do anything else. So I hope I can continue to do it for as long as possible. I'd love to. I don't know if I believe in the idea of retirement. I want to be sat here behind this desk at an old age, still banging out stories.
Yeah. I feel you.
But that's cool. I mean, that's a good idea of spending your elderly years, let's say.
Yeah, I would love to. I've never taken a crack at like writing a novel. I have the fear, where it's like I don't think I could do it. So maybe one day I'll take a stab at it.
You've got all the time in the world.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but wait, another question. So, like, in the next couple of years, is the gaming industry going to be enriched by Project 007?
I hope so.
Your prediction. I mean, hope so.
With no,
good enough.
Yeah, I mean, with no release date set. So, I mean, but I hope everybody likes what we're doing. I'm really, really super proud of it, and I know everybody on the team is really proud of it, and there's such cool buzz around it when we kind of show each other the stuff, when we get to show it in the company. So look, fingers crossed. that's all I can say.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Crossing the fingers on our end too.
Yeah.
It's a really awesome project to be part of. So And I know everybody feels the same way. So I really hope people dig it as much as we have enjoyed making it, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you. That was it for today. Follow us, subscribe, leave your comments, share this with your friends. Like, you're very welcome. Thank you very for joining us tonight.
Yeah,
It
that
very
was
interesting.
great.
Yeah.
No, you're very welcome. And thank
you.
you for having me on.